After acing the audition, my boyfriend stood me up for the celebration that was supposed to be just for me. Instead, he forced me to watch his boring practice and even ignored the fact that I was being bullied. His brother, who saved me, suddenly showed up, and my heart completely wavered. By the time I arrive at school, my heart is filled with nothing but regret. Regret over every life choice that's led me to this very moment. My bag feels unusually heavy, probably stuffed full of emotional baggage and a half-eaten granola bar, and every step I take in my sneakers creaks and groans, as if they're indignant at being made to work so hard. The morning chill still bites through, stinging my cheeks and making my fingers numb. I adjust the straps of my backpack, stride across the courtyard, and do my best not to look like someone whose insides are screaming out loud. Groups of students have gathered by the steps, their coats only halfway zipped, coffee cups clutched in their hands, moving slowly, like a school of fish half asleep and half awake. And there, right near the steps, is Taylor. For a fleeting moment, I just stood there, quietly watching him. He was standing in a circle with a few guys from the soccer team, chatting casually, old faces all around, hair tousled, wearing their team jackets, their sneaker laces tied carelessly, as if they'd been born disliking doing things right. What was he laughing at? His head tilted back slightly, his posture so relaxed and unencumbered, it had already captivated me long before I realized I'd fallen for him. This should have made me feel better. Most of the time, it did. That is, until I noticed two other people standing not far away, Rebecca and Zoe. Leaning against the railing, they wore an air of superiority, each holding a coffee cup, casting sidelong glances at me with ill intent, as if they were auditioning for a reboot of Mean Girls that no one wanted to see.
Great.
My steps came to a sudden halt. A rebellious voice deep inside me wanted me to turn around and walk away, pretend I hadn't seen a thing, crawl back into bed, and watch a baking show until my mind went completely blank. But I couldn't do it. Today was supposed to be a beautiful day. Today was mine. I straightened my shoulders and walked straight toward Taylor. When he saw me, his whole face lit up. There wasn't the slightest hesitation, not a trace of guilt, not a hint of awkward fidgeting, just pure, effortless joy at seeing me. My chest unconsciously relaxed. I realized it had been clenched all along. Without a second thought, he stepped out of the crowd, threw his arms wide open, and gave me a warm, solid hug, a hug that was just a bit too tight, as if he were trying to piece together all the shattered bits of me, though he didn't even know where the cracks were. Then, before I could even react, he pressed a kiss onto my forehead. A kiss soft, genuine, and utterly reassuring. "Congratulations, Penny," he said, looking down at me with a smile. It was as if, in this bustling courtyard, I were the only thing that mattered. "You did it. It's all over now." I looked up and smiled back at him, and the tension in my muscles began to melt away, like exhaling slowly after holding my breath. "Thanks," I said, my voice sounding more breathless than I'd expected. Everything was supposed to be perfect, though, of course, life never lets me have perfection for more than 30 seconds. Because just as I glanced over his shoulder, Rebecca was staring at us with a look that could wither crops. Zoe, meanwhile, had her hand over her mouth, whispering something quietly, and the two of them burst into that shrill, piercing laughter that seemed to pierce right through my spine. I seriously wanted to roll my eyes so far back into my head that they'd disappear altogether. But instead, I just leaned slightly closer to Taylor, resting my chin briefly against his chest, pretending not to care about what they were saying, though, honestly, 80% of the time, I really didn't care at all. Either Taylor hadn't noticed the two girls, or he simply didn't care because he gave my shoulder a little squeeze and started pulling me toward the classroom building. "Hurry up," he said. "We're going to be late." He casually glanced back over his shoulder to say goodbye to the guys, not even bothering to look at the two girls. His arm remained casually draped over my shoulder as he led me toward the door. To be honest, for just one fleeting moment, really just one single moment, it felt as if nothing in the world was wrong at all. Taylor's arm wrapped tightly around my shoulder, guiding me through the hallway with effortless ease, as if navigating these halls were an instinctive part of him, something he'd been doing since birth. Maybe it really was. We sidestepped a little kid dashing toward the cafeteria, probably trying to grab some food before breakfast ended, and Taylor tilted his head slightly, whispering softly into my ear. "So," he said, "how was yesterday?" I looked up at him, and the warmth in his smile sent a strange, indescribable ache through my chest. "At first," I said, searching for the right words as I sidestepped a group of freshmen huddled around the trophy display case, looking just like lost little ducklings. "It was kind of weird. I thought Mrs. Loretto had forgotten to put my name on the list. I panicked for a full 30 minutes. Taylor chuckled softly. "Typical Penny-style drama," he said. I gently nudged his ribs with my elbow, pretending to give him a stern look. "How rude." He laughed again. His laughter made my heart race. The feeling was embarrassingly childish, and I almost wanted to roll my eyes at myself. "But then," I said as I pushed open the door to the science building, "they called my name. And after that, everything just kind of fell into place. I didn't mess up. I got every single move right. Even that damn level 4 spin, the one I always botched during rehearsals. I nailed it perfectly." Taylor's smile grew even brighter. "That's amazing, baby." I felt my cheeks flush a little and lowered my gaze. "Yeah, it really feels incredible. Like I truly belong there." He pulled me closer again, his arms wrapping around me tightly, as if he were proud of me, as if even when I wasn't sure of myself, he'd always believed I could do it. I wanted to stay right here, stuck in this bubble where everything felt so simple and beautiful. But those words kept creeping back into my mind, the things that happened afterward, the night when all the pride I'd worked so hard for turned to dust, that sharp, bitter twist in the story. I opened my mouth and then snapped it shut just as quickly. "No, not now. Not today." Taylor didn't notice my hesitation, or maybe he did, but chose not to press the issue. Either way, as we reached the classroom door, he casually nudged my waist with his elbow, half jokingly. "We should celebrate," he said. "Let's grab a pizza or something after school." The suggestion took me by surprise, but in a good way. "Sure," I replied, looking up and smiling at him. "I'd love to." When the bell rang, we quietly slipped into our usual seats at the back of the room. Taylor stretched lazily, crossing his arms behind his head, showing about as much interest in the lesson as a house cat would in paying taxes. I pulled out my notebook and tapped lightly on the margin with my pen. Next to me, Taylor leaned over and gave my knee a gentle nudge with his own knee under the desk. "Did you know? You're really amazing," he whispered, his voice just loud enough to drown out the chatter in the classroom. Though the tiny, wounded part of me still remembered that, at the very moment I'd needed him most, he'd forgotten all about me. Another, louder part of me melted away in the warmth of his simple kindness. Because today he was here. Today he was making an effort. The bell rang, and the entire classroom erupted into chaos, like a flock of startled squirrels zapped by electricity. Papers rustled, chairs screeched as they were shoved back, and everyone bolted for the door as if it were the starting line of doomsday itself. Taylor slung his backpack over one shoulder and nudged me gently with his elbow. "Need anything before we go?" I shook my head and tossed my own bag onto my shoulder. "But I do have to stop by the registrar's office first. Last week I missed a few classes because of rehearsals. I really should have turned in my excuse note before someone came looking for me," he said with a smile, light and warm. "You're such a responsible person." I rolled my eyes, but secretly tucked that compliment away in my heart. After all, it's not every day that someone compliments you just for being a little bit organized. "I'll be back in a few minutes," I said, giving his hand a quick squeeze before heading off down the hallway. The registrar's office was tucked away in a gloomy little corner of the main building, entirely beige walls, humming fluorescent lights, and a sad ficus tree that had given up on thriving sometime around 2006. I handed in my excuse note and signed my name on the antique clipboard the secretary slid across, a clipboard that felt like an artifact from another era, and then made my way toward the courtyard. It didn't take long, maybe 5 minutes at most. But when I came back, Taylor wasn't alone anymore. He was standing with Jonathan, the same guy who'd been strangely friendly to me at the team event a few weeks earlier, and another guy I didn't recognize, probably a teammate too. Zoe was there as well, casually leaning against the stone railing, posing like she was modeling for a low-budget photo story shoot, laughing heartily at something Jonathan had said. For a split second, I hesitated. They weren't doing anything wrong, just chatting and joking around. Yet somehow, I still felt this strange, uncomfortable twist in my gut. It was tiny, sharp, but if you tried hard enough to ignore it, you could manage. I straightened my shoulders and walked over. Taylor was the first to notice me. A huge smile spread across his face, and without a hint of hesitation, he started walking toward me, reaching out to take my hand. Joe also glanced at me at the same time and gave me a smile full of dimples, radiating childlike charm, as if he were auditioning for a toothpaste commercial. "Hey, Penny," he said, his voice low and relaxed. I smiled back. After all, I wasn't exactly a bad person. "Hey, Joe," I replied. Then I politely nodded toward Zoe. "Hey, Zoe." She gave me a perfunctory smile, the kind that's meant to let you know there's spinach stuck in your teeth before she even says it out loud. But that was fine. I wasn't here looking for her approval anyway. Taylor squeezed my hand gently and tilted his head slightly. "Good news," he said excitedly. "The coach has opened up the practice facility for a bit. We're going to work on some tactics, not anything serious. You should come check it out for an hour or so, and then we can grab a pizza together afterward." Before I could even respond, Zoe chimed in, tossing her hair over one shoulder. "Sounds good." Taylor flashed her a quick smile, a friendly, natural smile, but immediately turned back to look at me again, his gaze soft and gentle. "It'll be fun. Come on." Somehow, despite the growing sense of unease deep inside me, I found myself nodding. "Sure," I said. "Sounds pretty interesting." He broke into a wide grin and gave my hand another little squeeze. And just like that, the icy wall in my heart melted a bit more. Taylor led me toward the back of the school, through a maze of narrow paths that wound their way between the buildings. I followed behind him at a safe distance, our hands intertwined, doing my best not to think too much. The sports building was huge, much newer than any other structure on campus, with all-glass walls and sleek metal beams that gleamed softly in the faint autumn sunlight. Behind the sports building, the playground looks like a green ocean, wide, open, and brimming with energy. The grass seems freshly mown, so vividly green it's almost dazzling. Around the perimeter of the playground runs a track. The faded red markings are peeling at the edges, and several dilapidated soccer goals lean against one side, looking like forgotten pieces of furniture. The air is thick with the scent of fresh grass, sweat, and a faint, hazy hint of rubber. The bleachers stretch along one side, tall and silver. Sunlight glints off the metal surfaces, blindingly bright. I climb up a few steps and take a seat in the middle row, just right for keeping an eye on everything without coming across as some creepy stalker. The boys toss their bags onto the edge of the track and start jogging slowly, kicking each other lightly in the heels, shoving and jostling like a pack of oversized puppies. Zoe follows them a few steps, then dramatically collapses onto the bottom row of the bleachers, immediately diving into her phone as if her entire life depended on it. For a few minutes, it was just them on the field. Joe, Taylor, and the others fooling around, trying to slide tackle each other, missing the ball half the time, laughing their hearts out, as if the point wasn't even winning but rather outshouting everyone else. I pulled my hoodie tighter around myself and let myself watch quietly. Taylor looked really happy. Not the kind of happiness you put on for show. No, this was real happiness. Effortless, unforced happiness. That's just how he was, a walking magnet for positive energy. It was as if he'd been born with the innate ability to make everyone around him feel lighter, happier, and more important. And that's precisely the problem, isn't it? He made everyone feel special, not just me. I watched him laugh as Joe snatched the ball away from him, then saw him jog slowly back to his position, turning around to grin at Zoe. Though Zoe pretended not to notice, it was clear she'd been watching him all along. The feeling welling up inside my chest, it wasn't exactly jealousy, to be precise. It was something fainter, something more melancholy. I wasn't angry that he'd been so friendly to everyone. Tyler had always been like that, making people feel seen, softening the sharp edges of the world. It's just that when someone shares their light with everyone else, you can't help but feel as though that beam of light is no longer shining solely for you. I shifted slightly on the bench, wrapped my arms around my knees, and forced myself to look away, letting my gaze wander aimlessly across the playground. A few minutes later, Rebecca and a few other girls, I vaguely recognized them as members of the soccer team's fan club, appeared, chattering away and laughing way too loudly, then sat down in a row of bleachers closer to the field. Zoe instantly perked up, put down her phone, leaned in, and whispered something quietly, sending the girls into giggles, as if they were sharing top-secret government secrets. I tilted my head back and closed my eyes, letting the faint sunlight warm my face. It had been almost 2 hours now, 2 whole hours spent sitting on a cold metal bench, watching the boys train endlessly, bumping into each other like hyperactive puppies, constantly showing off, as if someone were about to award a gold medal for most likely to pull a muscle. And now, apparently, the universe decided I'd suffered enough, and we'd moved on to the second phase of the afternoon. The girls know absolutely nothing about soccer. Please, just teach us, you strong, big guys. Not long ago, Taylor came running over, drenched in sweat and gasping for air, his hair a complete mess. He tried to talk me into joining them, wearing that crooked grin that usually makes my brain short-circuit. But today, my body felt as though it had been patched together with duct tape and some pretty terrible decisions. No way, I told him, stretching my legs out in front of me and frowning. Even if my life depended on it, I just don't have the energy to kick the ball anymore. He laughed, leaned down, and quickly pressed a sweaty kiss against my temple before saying, "Then you're really missing out, Val." With that, he dashed off toward Rebecca and Zoe, who were casually leaning against the sidelines, looking like extras in a terrible teen movie. He called out to them, gesturing toward the field, and they hopped over there like obedient golden retrievers, eager to please. Now they were playing soccer, or rather, pretending not to know which part of their feet to use when kicking the ball, turning it into a complete farce. Every time Rebecca missed the ball, which, honestly, she did every single time, she let out a phony, breathless giggle, while Zoe kept clapping her hands non-stop, looking like a little kid trying to summon magic. This plot is so cliché, I'm almost impressed by their persistence. Seriously, their acting is practically Oscar-worthy. You'd think the guys would have developed some immunity by now, but no, they're totally buying it, scrambling to help, demonstrate, teach. Maybe they're not being fooled at all. Maybe they just love the feeling of being needed. I pulled my hoodie tighter around myself, rested my chin on my knees, and watched Taylor run over to Rebecca to demonstrate, his hand resting lightly on her back, guiding her posture. And that little twisty feeling in my gut? Absolutely not jealousy. Not even a bit. It's just frustration, irritation, a mild existential despair. He was supposed to be coming with me for pizza. Just the two of us. That was our plan. And now, here I am, stuck watching him chat and laugh effortlessly with a bunch of people who wouldn't even pretend to like me if they'd been paid to do so. I sighed, kicking the loose bolt on the stadium steps with the toe of my sneakers. I was already mentally drafting a highly dramatic speech about how the promise of post-workout pizza had been betrayed, when suddenly, who are we even hating right now? The voice was too close, too low, like a slow rumble of thunder rolling down my spine. I jumped, a jump that wasn't cute or startled, but a full-body shudder, as if someone had just jabbed me with a live electric wire. I spun around so fast my heart was pounding, and there he was, Asher, wearing black cargo pants and a black long-sleeve shirt that fit him oddly well, subtly outlining his muscles and sharp, defined lines, and giving off that dangerous aura that every good girl should stay far away from. He just shaved, and his jawline was rough and sharp, so sharp, in fact, that if you got too close, you might just end up getting scratched. He looked at me with that enigmatic gaze of his, half amused, half something heavier, almost as if he were deciding whether I was a puzzle worth unraveling. My body started doing that annoying thing again, the goosebumps rising on my arms, my stomach twisting into knots, unsure whether to flee, freeze, or do something utterly unwise. "Seriously," I blurted out, looking up at him with a glare, "how the hell do you manage to walk so quietly?" He just kept staring at me, in that infuriatingly nonchalant way of his. "I'm not," he said. "It's just that you're not paying attention." I snorted and crossed my arms. "No way. You're a ninja. Admit it. You just love sneaking up on people and giving them a huge scare, getting some twisted kind of thrill out of it." His lips curled upward ever so slightly, revealing a faint, barely perceptible smile that sent a flutter through my chest, a sensation I was reluctant to acknowledge. He didn't argue, and somehow that made things even worse. I turned around abruptly, facing the court once more, determined not to let him see how flustered I was. After a while, I felt him sit down beside me. The bench shifted gently under his weight. At first, he said nothing at all. He just sat there, solid, utterly present. Seriously, he finally spoke, his voice low and tinged with a hint of amusement. "Who exactly are we hating on?" I sighed, resting the heel of my hand against my forehead. "Is it really that obvious?" "It's obvious," I said, lowering my hand and letting out a slow, despairing breath. I pointed toward the court with my finger, "aren't hating on anyone. We're just kind of annoyed." He nodded solemnly, his gaze lingering gently on my face for a couple of seconds before slowly shifting away, as if I'd just revealed a top-secret national secret to him. "Kind of annoyed," he repeated, then added, "Got it." I glanced at him sideways and found myself blurting out more words before I could stop myself. "I was supposed to go grab something to eat with Taylor, and then head home," I said. "But now here I am, watching this damn thing." I made a vague gesture toward the court, where Rebecca was pretending not to understand even the most basic hand-eye coordination. Asher hummed thoughtfully, his eyes following the direction of my gesture, while his fingertips unconsciously tapped lightly twice against the edge of the bench, a slow rhythm, almost as if echoing the restlessness deep inside me. I don't know why I'm saying all this. Maybe it's because he's so quiet. Maybe it's because he hasn't tried to solve the problem. Maybe it's because I just don't know. But I said it anyway. "The one with the dark, long hair." I nodded toward Rebecca. "Is Rebecca. She's been bullying me ever since sophomore year. Little things at first. Snide remarks, accidentally bumping into me in the locker room. Typical high school villain stuff." Ash's jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. "And next to Taylor is Zoe," I added. "She used to be okay, but now she's become best friends with Rebecca, so you know how it is." He glanced at me for a moment, and a fleeting, elusive emotion flickered in his eyes. "Taylor's friends with them? /B?" he asked, his voice calm. I shrugged and pulled myself closer into a tighter embrace. "Taylor's friends with everyone," I said, my voice tinged with a hint of resentment. Even I hadn't noticed it until now. "That's just how he is. He's always gentle toward everyone, yet he's never really paid attention to the way Rebecca and the others have been picking on me. In his eyes, keeping everyone on good terms is far more important than how I feel." A long silence followed. "What about you?" His voice dropped even lower, carrying a barely perceptible softness. The wind lifted a strand of hair from his forehead, brushing against those deep, unfathomable eyes. I gave a bitter little laugh. "I'm not nearly as good at that as he is," I said, more honestly than I'd expected. "I'm just not good at making people feel comfortable around me." Ash didn't say a word. He simply sat there, solid and silent, like an anchor I didn't know I needed. The field in front of me began to blur slightly, and the laughter, shouts, and feigned flirtations all faded into background noise. I slowly exhaled, dragging my bag onto my lap. "Forget it," I muttered under my breath, then stood up and slung the bag over my shoulder. I started walking down the stands, without looking back to see if he was following behind. Though I didn't turn around, my steps unconsciously grew lighter. Hidden within that lingering awkwardness was a hint of anticipation so subtle that even I felt ashamed to admit it. Deep down, I actually hoped he'd come after me.